This video I'm going to show you how I do a encased covered seam. You take your fabrics and you start them off with wrong sides together because you want the seam allowances on this one to be toward the front of the garment because you're going to be covering the seam allowances on the front. So you sew them wrong sides together. This is where you'll decide how wide you want your front strip to be. If you want it to be 1 inch, you need to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you want it to be a 1 inch and a half, you do a 3/4. I'm just going to do a 1/2 inch. So I'll have a 1 inch band on the front. Just do a regular construction seam as regular. And then you press it open. Now, a really good habit to get into when you're sewing is to press your seams after you sew. It helps set the stitch. It makes for a cleaner looking garment at the end. Now we're still on the right side of the fabric. Now this is where you're going to cover these seam allowances with your piece of fabric. This is kind of like a Hong Kong finish. What you do is one of your seam allowances you lift up and separate out from the fabric like this. Put your fabric you're going to be covering, raw edges together. Then sew about 1/4 inch seam on there. Now you take this, you do a quick press. You open your fabric up. You pull this out and lay your seam allowance flat again and press. Then you want to take your covering fabric, cover over your seam allowances. Make sure you line up this edge as best you can. Press. And then this one, you want to take and lift up the other seam allowance. and tuck this under this one. This fabric is just a little too wide to tuck under there, so I need to cut about a 1/16 of an inch, or I guess about 1/8 of an inch off. Lift up your other seam allowance and tuck this underneath it. And the better you tuck it, the better your seam embellishment will look. Then give this a good press so it stays put. Now, put in an edge stitch foot on your machine. I need to reset my machine to a center stitch. And then for my edge, I need it 2 millimeters over from the center. So I change my needle position to -2 to the left. Then edge stitch this down. And I recommend using an edge stitch foot for this, because it's going to be in the visible right side of the garment. And anytime you could use a tool to help get a consistent, even line, the better it is. Now, the benefit of this particular type of covered seam, this is the exterior of your fabric. Looks pretty good. You can get this look many different ways. But take a look at the inside. Perfectly clean, all encased, no raw edges, nice and smooth, super clean. This is a really good seam finish to do if you're doing an unlined lightweight jacket. So even when you open up your jacket to take it on and off, people could see the inside of it. They won't be seeing a mess. They'll see this incredible, nice looking seam. How I came up with this one was, years ago somebody needed a lightweight jacket here in Florida. They wanted this type of seam on the outside, but didn't want it lined because it's Florida. We don't really need lined jackets. So the miracle worker that people think of sewists are, I came up with this particular method. Yeah. I know many people think, we're miracle workers and we can turn wine or water into wine, but we do the best we can. And this is a encased, covered seam. Super clean looking.